Hello and welcome to another episode of Smorgen Borgen, We're Music Talking. Once again, you're stuck with me, Andy Holden, and my pal Clint D'Souza. Hi, Clint. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Love
Eh,
being indoors, eh?
It's the way it's always been. We've been trapped
Yeah,
like this for
yeah.
months.
I won't pretend like I was doing anything else before, like going out. But you know, it's always nice to complain. That's what that's what I find.
Yeah. You've got to have a reason to complain, innit? Because
Yeah,
I was thinking. Well, we were literally just discussing this, but the whole implication of social distancing, besides a few things, hasn't really changed my life that much.
yeah,
So,
and you were saying that people need to keep 2 meters in shops, right? Let's say a clothes shop, for example. I mean, who are the people coming within 2 meters of you in these clothes shops anyway? Like, why are people approaching you in shops?
yeah, like
Yeah.
who's getting all up close and personal with strangers anyway? Like fucking stay away, get away from
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. I start barking at people now to get too close.
Just
Yeah. Shout, I've got rabies. Ah! Right. Right. Should we jump in?
yeah.
We'll move
Let's
away from
dive.
our social thoughts and uh, we'll jump in with arguably something we know equally as little about, and that's music. So, our first topic is the worst song a serial killer could listen.
The
Fuck me.
wor- the
Oh,
worst
wait.
song
Uh,
that a serial killer could be whistling while they're torturing you and or killing you.
yeah.
So, okay, so for ambiance and for the scene, let's say you were enjoying a drink in a bar, you were having a lovely time. Next thing you know, you wake up and you're tied to a wooden chair in a basement, and there's only one solitary light bulb hanging down and it's swinging. And you
Yeah.
see a figure in the background messing around with something on a table. You know this isn't going to be good. What are they whistling? What are they
Okay.
whistling, Glenn?
Okay. I had a long think about this, right? Because this is very important. I was thinking about this documentary I was watching where this guy he's it's called Into the Void, and essentially he goes up a mountain, and the biggest catastrophe happens to him, right? He falls off the edge, he breaks his bones, and he has to like crawl back to the camp after many days of like no food or water, and in his mind there is a brown girl in the ring, right, by Boney M, and he's like, I can't die to this. I can't die to this. I won't be I won't lose my life to this song. And then that is what kept him going. So I was thinking, what song would get me in that mood? Like I am not dying to this. I refuse to be found hanging. I refuse to be found dead on the street with this song playing. And for me, that is "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves. I hate it. I hate it. And if someone was whistling that as they're killing me, I'll be like, "Yo, just stop whistling it and just poke a little deeper. I don't mind. Just stop whistling that." Yeah.
That's a good choice. I was thinking along them lines because you would hope, or I don't know, maybe this is just the male fantasy part of my brain, but I would kind of hope that my death would be epic in some way, that it would be memorable and it would mean something. So
Yeah.
the idea of some maniac sort of chopping me to pieces while whistling a song that sucks was sort of what I was thinking about. So kind of similar to what you were thinking. But I was thinking, what if it was like a meme?
Oh,
What if
right.
it was like that? We are number one. Or I was thinking it would be worse if do you remember back in the day? Do you remember Crazy Frog,
Oh, the Axel F
the
sort of
Axel
song.
F
Yeah.
remix? I was
Yeah.
thinking that would be worse because what if they were whistling the
Oh God.
you'd be like, is that Axel F? What the fuck? But then they could turn around and start going like bing bop bop bing bing, and I'd be like, oh
Oh no.
fucking lord, stop.
Give me the hammer, I'll do it. I was weirdly enough, me and you both share like an active imagination. And for some reason, I was thinking I was important enough that someone would go through the lengths of torturing me instead of just killing me there and then. Like, like I would give them any pleasure. Ah, because I always picture what would they do, but most of the time they probably wouldn't do anything. They just kill you. They laugh. Nah, fuck
Yeah,
this
yeah,
guy.
you're just done for really. Yeah, good. Yeah. Oh man, that I don't know. I could see a horror film, like a really shit horror film, where the serial killer would whistle "Walking on Sunshine," or like the background music would be it, and as like you're getting your fingernails ripped off or something, you just go, "Oh, it's like, oh nah." That's it. You could see that they thought they were being really edgy and nuanced, but it's just fucking bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like annoyingly happy. So it does contrast quite a lot to like any situation you find yourself in with a serial killer. So, I mean, I can't imagine like you strapped to a chair. Well, I can imagine that, but I can't imagine someone going brum, 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 brum," like with after you'd be like, what is going on?
I'd respect that as an intimidation technique. I'd be like, what the fuck? Stop! No, please. Bam, 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 bam. Well, goddamn.
Two excellent choices.
I think I'd be more annoyed that I was being killed by an absolute moron.
Like this guy
If
outside.
they were doing that, I'd be like, oh, come on.
Oh dear. Right. To our next topic. It will be if your life was a sitcom, right? What would be the music, the theme tune when you enter a room? Now, I was thinking two choices here. There was I don't know if you heard it. It's the Sanford and Son theme tune, right? I've never watched the show, but it was composed by Quincy Jones, and it's the most. I don't know. It's the most unassuming, like, oh, why this always happened to me sort of song, right? And I feel like sometimes my life is a sitcom. Like I'll go speak to a girl, or I'll just go do something, or just say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And be like, why always me? And
Why?
this song was something I had in mind, but I went with Clint Eastwood by the Gorillaz instead.
Ooh, good choice. That the drum hits at the start into
Uh,
it. That'd be
yeah,
really cool. That's
yeah, that sort of bit as well. Totally. And also my name's Clint is my name. Half at least of the song is my namesake. I have a sneaking suspicion my grandparents and my parents named me Clint Eastwood Clint after Clint Eastwood at least. But they'll never admit to that. But yeah,
Can you remember in first year of university, me and Zach were trying to get everybody to call you Eastwood as like a
yeah,
nickname.
yeah. And no, no,
It never it
but
never
no one
worked.
did.
No, no, no. That's a really good, solid choice.
Right.
All of mine are just stupid answers, but I feel like that kind of chaotic energy probably works or would work with my entering a room.
Yeah.
Um, so I was thinking, what if it was like, the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom of the Opera, where it goes like da 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 da
Yeah.
da
Yeah.
da da da, because I don't know. I'm not even a particularly gothic person. Like all of my tastes are very gothic, but I very much don't look like one at all.
Mhm.
And I'm not a dark and mysterious person either, so it doesn't really work. The juxtaposition would be kind of foolish. So I was thinking, and I'm going to out myself as a weirdo here, but I think it would be hilarious if it was the Pornhub amateur song intro whenever I entered a room, the drum beat and the do 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 do, and that's just Andrew has entered the room.
Um. Wow. That was. Oh my God! Andy's entered the room. Wow. I
Boom,
don't know.
digga dim.
Oh man. I mean, like everybody would be on the edge of their seats, wondering what you're going to do next. What's he going to pull out of his pocket?
It was good.
It's like-
Yeah, that I mean that is so like foolish. It would be so
yeah,
silly. Yeah, yeah.
that would be great. All of these really like stop the room, right? As you enter, like any conversation, any party or anything would just stop.
And they
All
turn and
eyes would
look.
be on you. Yeah,
That would be cool. That would be cool. I mean, that would be the dream if you're a sitcom character. You wouldn't want to be a background character. You want to be, one of the mains.
totally, totally. and a good laugh track or a good audience track. Take me.
I, I like the idea that I'm in a terrible sort of sitcom like Friends or whatever, which really heavily features a laugh track. But whenever I enter a room, the laugh track just stops. And it's just like silence between me saying things. And
This
then I'd
eerie
leave,
deadness.
I'd leave,
Oh,
and then everybody would be like, "Oh, thank fuck."
Back to the laugh track. Amazing, amazing.
Have you ever, as a sort of divergence for a second, have you ever heard where there's this one really distinctive laugh, and I think it's the laugh track for Friends, where you can really clearly hear just one guy goes like,
No, I haven't
so
really
good.
watched Friends.
Oh no, you can find that you can find a compilation of the laugh track on YouTube. Just hearing that one guy going like over
He's
and
having
over.
the time of his life, isn't he? Sounds like it.
It's so good, so funny.
That must be the equivalent of the Wilhelm scream for sitcoms, I reckon.
Oh yeah, it's
That
got.
one guy. I can imagine it cutting through.
Oh,
Wow.
it's good. It's good. It's funny stuff. Funny stuff.
Yeah. Our last topic is a little bit of a more somber one. I was thinking a lot about this, and I was thinking there's so many artists I listen to who have died early, and the topic is if you could stop any young musician's death, who would it be? And I'm gonna add the caveat as why. Why would you think that? And for me, at least, one of the bigger than the death coming prematurely is like the wasted potential that you could possibly see, or that you could see that they were still had an upwards curve to their talent. They hadn't peaked yet, and that drew out some names for me. How did you find this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I could very easily just I could list off a bunch of names very quickly. But I think the point that you're making is where it is sort of most poignant is because a lot of my favorite artists, you know, of older generations are people like Tom Waits, Nick Cave, who very much the fact that they are older gentlemen now has shown such a sort of change throughout their style, and they've gone through so many musical phases and things like that that make them so ultimately listenable. And so, you know, there's so much of a discography that you can really bite your, you know, teeth into.
Mm.
So I would say that the people who I'd want to save who did die young are the kind of people who I could see that they would develop in such a stratospheric way, I'm going to argue.
I mean that's quite a hard thing to see. Let's say Tom Waits, for example. Could you have like really anticipated at the time of listening to his really early stuff that he would have taken the roots and the music divergences that he took later in his career?
No, absolutely not. And yeah, and I think that's part of what makes it amazing and part of what is really the rich tapestry of life for
Yeah.
these people. Because yeah, if you listen to like Closing Time, it's really decently written folk tunes about, you know, falling in love and whatnot. But you know, to think of the avant-garde stuff that he released later is just, you know, wow, how is this the same person? Um, and you are right, to be fair, it is just sort of postulating on what my idea of what their musical output could have been.
Mm.
But you know, even with some of my answers, to be fair, even if they had just rehashed what they'd done forever, I think it would be cool. Because like my argument is, and I know I would very much offend our pal Zach by saying this, but I don't think Jeff Buckley would have developed in a particularly interesting way. I think he probably would have continued to write really honestly amazing, beautiful sort of guitar-based alternative music for the rest of his career with that blues influence. But I don't think honestly that he would have gone off in a, you know, a bizarre direction or anything like that. despite him dying so tragically and so young, you know. So I probably this is harsh though. I mean to go on to see what Jeff Buckley could have done, because I mean his debut album is one of the best albums ever.
Yeah.
So you know, who am I to, you know, put him down in any way? I honestly, a lot of people say it, but I'm not sure if Kurt Cobain would have developed in a very interesting way either. But I would have loved for him to have the opportunity to,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, both of
Um,
them, I guess. Yeah.
um, for me, I think Elliott Smith.
Right.
I very much would have loved to see what he did if he'd just kept going and just kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you sense a shift in his musical direction just before his death?
Yeah, the stuff that because obviously he went into it was all that sad boy folk stuff.
Yeah.
He'd swapped into more sort of electric things.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's like From the Basement on the Hill or something like that. I think that's the name of the last album. Is what was it was released posthumously.
Mm.
And a lot of the songs on that are just gorgeous, but there's a real dark side to it, which is more along the lines of like dark alternative as opposed to, you know, the usual. I don't mean this in a bad way, but sort of whimpering sad boy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I loved his music, don't get me wrong, but there was a slight whininess to it to a certain degree. It was almost like he developed, well, not necessarily developed grit, but the songs themselves had a bit more bite to them, which I think it would be interesting to see Elliott Smith if he'd written way more aggressive music.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good answer. I didn't even think about Elliott Smith, but yeah, you could definitely picture him going a bit more experimental with his take. Amazing answer. Thank you. Uh, I had a tricky one with this one, I'll be honest with you. And weirdly enough, I was thinking about the same thing about Jeff Buckley. I was like, oh, imagine what we would have done. But then I was thinking, how do you kind of like top Grace?
Yeah.
With the same, can you put the same stuff out there and then expect it to be better? It might be on par, but can it? I mean, who knows? And these were like tough ones to crack. Obviously, there's a huge list of, like, you know, Kurt Cobain, you know, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, but who did die too early. It's sad to see them go, essentially. But I was thinking the same path as you. So I had two artists that I thought, where could they have gone? It would be very interesting to see where they could have gone. And the first one was purely on The Voice, and it was Otis Redding.
Oh wow, yeah, good shout.
He had a sublime voice for a man in his early 20s. I think he died 25, 26. I'm not too sure. He died like just after recording Sitting in the Dock of the Bay, like the couple of days afterwards or something.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if he was like 50 singing what he was singing. I think about like Gil Scott-Heron and like how his voice is like matured in a sublime way as he's gotten older. I wonder what Otis would have done. But the one, if I could choose one, I probably would have gone for Jim Morrison from The Doors. Because I have no clue what he would have done when he was going. It was really weird as anything and putting out weird stuff. But to think about what he'd be doing if he was still delving in and putting out projects, you can only like speculate, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good answer. I don't know. I think obviously we can only talk about the timeline we live in, clearly.
Yeah.
But to be fair, a lot of the reputation based around these people is to a certain degree that they died. And I sometimes wonder these things. Like I'm not in any way trying to take anything away from the people or the successes of anybody or anything like that, or the talent. I'm not trying to argue that, but I do sometimes wonder, like, to what level of acclaim these people would have if they had just kept going.
Yeah.
Because like if you'd asked somebody in the 80s what public opinion of Michael Jackson would be in the year 2015 or whatever, they'd be like, you know, greatest songwriter ever, greatest performer ever, you know, something like that. Whereas, you know, it was more that he'd become a spectacle that did some performing and some singing,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
and I think, like, I know this is a really brutal point to make, but like, I think to a certain degree, a lot of artists are sort of hitting a point at the moment. I am in no way trying to say that people should die young. Like, but I could
Oh,
see that
okay. Let's see where this
I
is
could
going.
see that people would take this argument from me. I think Paul McCartney is shitting on the legend that he'd made of himself
Yeah.
with his continuation. And I think Michael Jackson was in the process of doing that. I think a lot of these older sort of musicians and older bands really do run a gambit of ruining the legacy that they've already created and that they could have by not sort of burning out, as it were. It's I think it's the Neil Young quote, isn't it? Is it better to burn out or fade away?
Mm.
And I definitely think burn out. Because it would be interesting because obviously after Ian Curtis died and Joy Division stopped being a thing, and they started New Order, it would be interesting to see what the band would have done if Ian had still been kicking around.
Yeah.
Would it have gone down that sort of, you know, dance route, which arguably it would have done because they are the same guys. Um,
But I mean, to your argument, I wouldn't say Tom Waits was a particularly fast-burning artist. Like, you know, he's still knocking about, and all the better for it.
yeah, and that's totally the argument, isn't it? Because obviously this is a subjective thing, but yeah, you know, in my opinion, these people getting older sort of ruining their older personas and stuff like that. But like people like you just said, Tom Waits has 100% made himself better. He's like a fine wine, man. He's like, you know, everything that he's released since he kind of got old has been gold.
Yeah.
The same with Leonard Cohen as well.
Mm.
Some of the stuff and David Bowie, man. The
Mm.
stuff he released just before he died was unbelievably good. So, you know, it's not necessarily that just because you're older you become shit. Like that's not
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say at all. I suppose it's the tightrope act of being an artist in any way, because you know you can ruin yourself with some of the bad stuff that you do when you're young, but you could ruin yourself with bad stuff that you do when you're old as well. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's just incredibly hard to maintain relevance or
Yeah.
good quality control.
Yeah. So yeah, don't be shit ever, young or old. I mean the thing also is I do believe that this happens to some degree. I'm not saying that their deaths, you know, are not sad, but a young death of any creative talent usually puts their work on a slightly higher pedestal than it would have been anyway. It is terrible to see people go, but their remembrance is also mixed in with an early death. And like you said, this is sometimes what they're remembered for more than the actual work that they did. So yeah, but yeah, some good choices here on some artists, and we'll be picking our favorite songs from these artists and putting them on playlists, and we'll be linking them around the place. Do chime in with your suggestions on our topics.
Yeah. We've created some Spotify playlists if you want to listen to what we're talking about, because we do scatterbrain all over the place, and you might not have heard of everything that we're talking about either.
Yeah.
So it can be a good place to pick up on some stuff. But I guess to take us flowing forward into the ending, what you been vibing with this week, my man?
Excellent question. I have been listening to this week Run the Jewels album number 4, Run the Jewels 4. Now, we were talking about an artist, let's say Jeff Buckley, putting out the same stuff all the time. This is exactly what they're doing. They're putting out the same stuff and it rocks and I love it. And all the better for it. I never want it to end. It is more hard-hitting, more political orientated, and all sorts, but it's essentially the same hardcore, amazing rap flows and beats. And
Yeah,
yes, Run the Jewels 4. Keep doing what you're doing. I love you guys. What have you been vibing with this week, Andy?
I mean, goddamn. I'd forgotten that Run the Jewels had released Run the Jewels 4. I need to go back and listen to it because I remember loving it at the time, but I haven't gone back to it. Which I go through stages with Run the Jewels. I love them, but I fall in and out of listening to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, this I'm gonna do a sad one, and then I'm gonna move on to a happier one. So this is quite sad. Obviously, we record these on a different day to when we release them because we've got to do editing and think about if anything's good or anything like that. But today is Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2020. And Tim Smith, who was the singer and sort of main songwriter for a band called Cardiacs, died today.
Oh.
Not many people really know about Cardiacs. They're a really I'm going to use all of my Andyisms. They're an unbelievably good, phenomenal 10 out of 10 band that since the 80s, I think it was the late 70s, but since the 80s have just sort of torn their way through the British music scene, doing exactly what they want. In exactly the way that they want to do it. And they had some notable success, but they very much are a sort of like underground, if you know them, you love them. So you probably haven't listened to them. But yeah, they're unbelievably good, and it's really sad that he's died. He had a heart attack in 2008, and he's suffered from horrific health issues since then, and has finally passed away, sadly. But yeah, so rather than a track, I'm going to say, if you have the time, they released an album in 1988 called A Little Man and a House in the Whole World Window, which is fucking glorious. It is so unbelievably good. Yeah, it's very kooky. It's very all over the place. It's yeah, I just couldn't recommend Cardiacs more. So so sad to see such a legend die. But yeah, on the other hand, God, sorry, going off on one there has kind of upset me. I'm not sure what else I've been listening to. What else have I been listening to? Oh, right, there we go. I've recently been listening to the Jesus Lizard on repeat over and over and over. And there's a YouTube comment which is on one of my favorite songs at the moment called Sunglasses by Black Country New Road, which says, "I love when my singers sound like they're negotiating with the police from the top of a building." And David Yao is the singer for the Jesus Lizard, and I feel to a certain degree like he created that style. That sort of just yelling nonsense. And it's so good. Goat is an unbelievably good album, and
it's fantastic.
Then Comes Dudley is such a good song. It's got a Miles Davis reference in the guitar line, which is just so cool. It's got one of the hardest things I can't figure out what the fuck the guitarist is up to in certain bits of that song. It's just like magic. And then, yeah, just David Yao screaming about this woman being crazy is fucking dope. I love it so much. So, yeah, please do check out Cardiacs. But, yeah, vibe with the Jesus Lizard. Keep noise rock alive, eh?
Thank you so much for your vibes. And you can find them here in our track listings. Thanks for listening. If if you have a smidgen of interest in any of the topics we have discussed today, we have other episodes available where you can listen to us and our track listings on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, or iTunes.
If you have enjoyed us, please get the word out about the podcast. It really will mean the world to us.
Remember, this week's topics are your sitcom entering a room theme music, worst song a serial killer could whistle as they kill you, and if you could stop any musician's young death, what would it be?
We'd love to hear your hot take on any of this week's topics, so please comment with your song choices and topics for the show on SoundCloud or YouTube. The best ones will get a shout out or possibly be discussed in the show.
You can also directly email us your topics to seenbutnotheard420@gmail.com.
Yeah, and if that's a bit too advanced, you can send us a carrier pigeon or a smoke signal, you fucking granddad.
Thanks for listening. We have been Andy Holden and Clint D'Souza.
Yeah, please swipe right if you see us on Tinder. Bye.
Bye.